One of our subscribers, after viewing Quick Tip 184, asked this question: how do you utilize impasto in painting objects in the distance while still maintaining a sense of atmospheric perspective in the entire painting? In fact, it's not the texture, it's the value. So it doesn't matter what technique you're using, whether the paint is really thick impasto or whether it's thin, whether it's watercolor, whether it's pastel, it doesn't make any difference. Well, whether it's the medium or the technique. The value is going to determine how you create atmospheric perspective. Atmospheric perspective means that the atmosphere causes things to get lighter as they go into distance, or to change in value, or change in other ways too, but this mainly is about value. So I'm going to throw together here just a little bit, just a very short little demonstration using the impasto technique in a very, very simple demonstration to show you what I'm talking about. You can have the paint as thick as you want it. What's going to affect the atmosphere, the feeling of atmospheric perspective, is not the thickness of the paint, but it's the value of the paint. So what we'll do here, if those of you that work with me know that I usually like to start with the shadow areas and work from shadow, not in shadow. But because of the nature of this demonstration, what I'm going to do is to start at the top and work down, simply to show you how it works. So I've done just a very, very simple little block-in or preliminary here to kind of divide the space a little bit. Not trying to be exact, just using this photo as a reference so that you'll know where I'm going. Alright, so we'll begin with the light. The sky, as you can see, is the lightest light, and then things as these images, these various shapes of mountains get closer to us, they get darker up to about right here, and then we begin to see the details right here. Begin to see the details of how the light and shadow define the shape. So we got stronger contrast in front. We've got less contrast as we go down here, but mainly I want to address not necessarily the contrast, but I want to address what happens as the thing changes in value. So I begin in the distance, and I'm just going to use two colors here. These might be two colors that you might not even use for that sort of thing, but I thought it might be fun just to change up, just a little change up here. I'm just using the burnt sienna and phthalo blue. Two colors that work very well together if you want to do a tonal painting. Now, so I'm just going to throw together in here now in an impasto technique, which means that the paint's going to be very thick. I didn't add anything to this to make the brush strokes thicker, as I was describing in the quick tip that this viewer referred to. But what I just want to do is create a real textured sky, and so we'll start by making the sky a little bit darker at the top there, and then I'll pull some light into it, and we'll create texture. I just want to show you that the texture of the sky won't affect the atmosphere. So I'll pull this down and make that very textured, sort of like Van Gogh might do a sky. Although not, and I'm not trying to paint like Van Gogh. Just this is the kind of sky you might see in a Van Gogh. I'll pull this down right here. Alright, so I'll just throw some extra texture in there just to make the point. That's just really, really very textured. Alright, now I'm going to come down. Now the next, this is a kind of an echo. I'm just going to go ahead and assume that that is the atmosphere is there's a mountain range in the distance there, and so we'll just make that just a value, not even quite a value darker. So pulling the burnt umber into the phthalo blue there, it lowers its intensity, and Makes it a little bit neutral. And kind of leans it a little bit towards green. So, alright, so we've got that. Now let's see what do we need there in terms of value. That's too dark. That would be the next value. So I'm going to lighten that. And put a little bit of this white over here in. Let's get that lighter. Just so we can tell the value difference. That's probably good enough right there. Now I'm going to throw that in, throw that little area in, just a really heavy texture. Now I'm using, somebody's going to ask, so I might as well say, using just my standard palette knife. Actually, this is called a painting knife, but I use it as a palette knife. But that's all I'm using here. I'm not using any specialized knife at all. You don't need a specialized knife for impasto painting. In fact, you could go to the hardware store and buy some spatulas. What do you call those things? That
Putty knife.
what was that?
Putty knife. Putty.
Not putty.
No.
The tool itself.
Putty knife.
Putty knife. Thank you. That's the first time Roger's been in our videos, although he's been behind the camera the whole time. All right, so we'll just let that be. Now you can see what I will do there is I will soften these edges a little bit, and we can do that with impasto. So soften the edge a little bit so that it doesn't look quite so specific. There we go. Now you can see we see a little bit of value difference, but it's got pretty much the same kind of texture, same degree of texture all the way in both those areas. So let's go now. Let's go to a darker value as we come down to this next range. Alright, now this is probably too dark, so we sort of have to control these things as we go. And we don't want that to be too harsh. So you can begin to see that kind of greenish tone that the burnt umber and phthalo blue will give us. Way too dark. I'm going to pull some of this over here and get that a little bit lighter. Now let's see. Okay, that's probably good enough. Remember, this is meant to be tonal. Now that, okay, not maybe I'm thinking that maybe just a little bit bright, a little bit intense. So I'm going to add a little bit of the burnt umber back into it. I'm going to add a little bit of the white back into the burnt umber. I'll just pull that down from here because I don't need the white anymore, the light anymore. Alright, so what I want this value right there. Okay, that's pretty close. Now, I'm not going to try to go into specifics of that, but here we go. Okay, that's better. That's better. Alright, now, that's up here too dark. I want the atmosphere, feeling of atmosphere as it moves into the distance, so I'll get that just a little bit lighter. There we go, that's a little bit better. Alright, I'll just kind of put that in, and notice what I'm doing here. Somebody's going to ask, so I'll just, yeah, I'm being very sloppy reaching into the white up there. That's one thing about palette knife painting, and when you're painting impasto, you do tend to get a little sloppy, or at least I do. Alright, so you can kind of blend that just a little, and then notice the texture, the feeling of the texture all the way through, because the texture is what the question was about. So you can see now, you can begin to see already that the texture, it's not the texture that's causing us to feel the distance of the mountains there. It's the value. It's the value difference. I'm going to make this just a little bit lighter right in here so you can see that. And pull a little bit more of the light in there. There we go. And you notice as I pull the light in, it kind of pushes that back into distance. It creates that, a little bit more of that atmosphere, the feeling of atmosphere. Pull a little bit more of the light in. And see, so if I soften that, you get that lighter. Notice how the it feels more atmospheric, and more like the atmosphere is blending with that. Okay, so, and then that gets a little bit darker as it comes down in here. And I'll try to keep that really, really textured as it comes down, controlling just the value. Pretty much keeping the texture, trying to keep that texture pretty thick, keeping it pretty much the same degree of texturedness as I'm moving along, coming down. Now you see then as we get closer to the front, we're seeing things even darker. Now if you look at just that much, you see, you can begin to see or have the feeling of atmosphere. So we're going to get it darker now and pick up that, pick up the feeling of that little darker bunch of heels that we see right there. Let's see if this dark is going to work. Let's see, is that too dark? Well, I'm going to need a little bit more variation in value in there, so that's a good place to start. So I'll just go ahead and throw big palette knife loads of that value, that dark value in there. And create another patch here. About phthalo blue, such a strong color that if you're using it as your color, you have to really be careful to don't get it too intense, because it does want to get intense. That's dark. We want dark, because this is close enough to us now. We're beginning to feel it, not so much in the atmospheric particles are not interfering or between our eyesight. Let's say it this way. Between our eyes and those mountains in the very distance there are many particles, and how particles in the atmosphere. The number of particles, of course, depends on the weather, lots and lots of things. Those particles are what are causing us not to be able to see things in the distance as clearly, and in many cases as dark as we see them closer to us. All right, let's just quickly throw this on here. And I'm just going to quickly throw this in here. And you see I'm not following that precisely. I'm just using it as kind of a guide, using that photo as kind of a guide. And I don't think I'm going to even take it all the way to the bottom. I'm going to do just enough. You know how I am with these quick tips. I want to show you just enough so that you get the principle, so that you get the idea of whatever the thing is that whatever the idea is, or the principle that we're working with. And I know some people complain they want to see the whole thing done. Well, that's not my purpose. I don't do that. I just show you how the principle works, and then when it reaches a point where the principle is working, I'm thinking, okay, you can take it from there, because that's what I'm interested in. If you want to see me painting, well, you could buy our video lessons. That might be a place to see me doing more than you see me doing here. Okay, now you see what's going on there. I'm giving a little bit of value variation, giving a little bit more of the expression of what we see at the top of the trees there. And let's get that just a little bit more of the value variation that we see right here. We see more value. The closer we are to things, the more value variation we're going to see. Put a little bit more of that. I really have messed up my white there. It kind of irritates me when I do that, but for the sake of this quick tip, we'll put up with it. A little bit more value variation, just to show that principle of how it's not the texture, but the value that causes you to see the atmospheric, cause you to see the principle of the atmospheric perspective. Okay, let's see, that probably is just about enough. Let me step back just a moment and see how that's working. Be sure that I'm trying to be sure I have the same thickness of texture in front that I have in the sky in the back. Now you can already see how that's beginning to progress. You can already see that it's not the texture. That we have to manage in order to get the atmosphere. You can use as thick texture as you want to, as long as you control your values. Have the more distinct values. In some cases, it's going to be value contrast, but the more distinct, the stronger value contrast are going to be closer to you, and that contrast is going to get closer and closer. In some cases, totally disappear as images move into the distance. Also, in cases such as the mountains like this, you're going to see things get lighter as they move into the distance as a part of that atmospheric perspective. So perhaps that's taken this far enough, so if you want to practice that idea, then you can take it on your own. Be sure and view all of our quick tips. And while you're doing so, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell, so you'll always get a notice when we produce a new quick tip, which is every week. And if you have a question, leave it in the comments section and we'll make a quick tip for you. Also, take a trip over to DianeMize.com, where I have full-length lessons, downloads, DVDs, lots of other stuff there, some free stuff for you. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the newsletter, and that way you'll always be informed every time we do something new.